Some of our skin folk who are not our family, such as Byron Donalds, will continue to say that. I mean, the fact that you're sitting around talking about how life was better under Jim Crow, is this because you don't understand history? Or, literally, it's because you married a white woman and believe that that whitewashes you? I'm not sure what it is. First and foremost, don't talk about my wife. Keep my wife out of this. It has nothing to do with her. You can talk to me about policy whenever you want. Second, there were a couple of times on the campaign trail last year when I knew I was scheduled to be on stage or in a debate with Jasmine and her schedule changed. She had a conflict, whatever the case may be. So, if she wants to do this or have that dispute, I'm simple to locate. You don't have to look hard for me, you know, I'm 6'2". You could find me pretty easily number 3, and most importantly, this demonstrates, frankly, racism in the Democratic Party because they don't mind if Kamala Harris or Ketanji Brown Jackson marry white men as long as they subscribe to the Democratic left's politics. Everything is fine, but if you're a conservative but your spouse happens to be white or of another race, then all of a sudden it's a problem. During a live broadcast meant to discuss policy, Jasmine Crockett took a sharp personal jab at Byron Donalds' interracial marriage, and what he said in response left the nation speechless. It wasn't supposed to go like this. Thursday night, when a live political special was airing on national television, one of those roundtable discussions with he always wore his hands resting on camera and his voice was smooth when he spoke next to him. Representative Jasmine Crockett of Texas, known for her direct style, was as sharp in words as she was in person. Everyone knew it was going to be interesting, but no one expected it to boil. The moderator, a middle-aged journalist with a reputation for remaining neutral, began with a simple question: in this current climate, how do we begin to bridge the divide? Byron responded first, I think it starts with truth, and the truth is that Americans aren't as divided as Washington wants them to be. We have shared concerns about yams, kids, and education, but we let narratives twist that into hate. Crockett raised an eyebrow but remained silent. The moderator then turned to her Congresswoman, Crockett. Jasmine leaned forward. It's easy to talk about unity when you've never had to live the reality. You can say we're not divided, but some of us don't have the luxury of pretending race isn't a part of the problem. The air got tighter, not tense, but enough to make a few people in the control room start watching closer. The panel moved forward: healthcare, inflation, gun reform, standard topics, and then as the moderator teed up a question about education disparities, Crockett cut in, not rudely but sharply. When he married into whiteness and uses that to justify policy that does not reflect our lived truth, the room fell silent. Even the camera crew, which was normally whispering through cues and lens adjustments, went dead silent. The moderator's eyes widened for a second before he glanced toward Byron, waiting to see if he'd respond. Donalds did not flinch. He didn't glance at the camera, he stared directly at Jasmine. His voice was calmer and lower than previously. Are you suggesting I am less black because of who I love? Jasmine retained his eyes. I'm saying you have blind spots, and some of those blind spots may stem from not sharing the same experiences. You don't get to define my roots. He stated. It wasn't shouting. It wasn't a fight, but it had weight. The kind of weight that makes you lean in closer. The kind that keeps you from picking up your phone. The kind that holds you in your chair like something big is coming. The moderator tried to step in. Let's try to focus on policy, but it was too late. The moment had landed that one exchange less than 30 seconds would spark a national fire, but in that moment, no one knew what was about to hit, but the room wasn't done shifting yet. They cut to he wasn't upset in the manner people assume. He seemed more like a man doing arithmetic in his brain, calculating the cost of letting that statement slip. When the moderator returned to the air, he sought to redirect the conversation to criminal justice reform, Representative Donalds. But Byron lifted his hand gently and spoke, I'm going to address what was just said. That line alone warned the crowd that something was coming. His tone was not defensive. He wasn't rattled, but there was something in his voice that sounded a lot like disappointment and possibly betrayal. I married my wife because she's the most decent human being I've ever known. We met before politics and she was working in community health outreach. We fell in love. Likes our story, and it's no one's political talking point. He stopped, not for effect, but because it appeared like the words had hit him before he even spoke them. My children are mixed. Yes, and they've had real questions about their identity, about what they see in the news, about what they hear in school, and I answer those questions as a black father, not a party member. The panel was frozen, and even Jasmine was quiet now. Her expression was unreadable, but her posture had changed, shoulders slightly drawn, and Byron kept going. And let me be very clear, if you think I can't fight for our communities because my wife is white, then you're telling every black man who that's just a new type of prison. I could hear breathing in the studio. One of the producers in the back was anxiously tapping her pen while another younger one whispered something to his earpiece. "Are we letting this go?" Jasmine eventually replied, although gentler than previously. "I'm not criticizing your marriage, Congressman. I'm talking about the lens we use when discussing solutions, and I'm telling you that lens includes love." Byron fired back. "It involves raising a family. Navigating two worlds does not make me less conscious. It makes me more silence again." Then Byron looked directly at the camera for the first time that night. "You want unity. You don't get there by questioning people's loyalty based on who they go home to. That's not the way." The moderator cleared his throat, visibly rattled. "We're going to take a quick pause." The network cut away mid-sentence, and just like that, the entire country had something new to argue about in homes across Phoenix, Dallas, Cincinnati, and Baker. The clip was uploaded within minutes. "Donald's destroys Crockett" became a trending phrase, but the reactions were anything but uniform. Some called it righteous, others called it performative, and a few took Crockett's side, saying her point had been taken out of context. Still, most agreed that this wasn't politics as usual. In less than 3 minutes, the entire tone of the debate had shifted from bills and budgets to identity, family, and the limits of criticism. When Byron went off the set, his blazer hung loosely in his hand. His dress shirt, however, was moist from the studio heat. It wasn't the lights that made him sweat. He made his way into the silent, narrow, and antiseptic hallway where a couple of workers leaned against the wall, conversing. One of the interns gave him a bottle of water without making eye contact. He didn't accept it. In a neighboring green room, Jasmine Crockett sat alone browsing her phone, her fingers moving quickly, most likely looking at Twitter or a group chat that was about to explode up. She didn't look up when he passed. Neither of them said anything. Byron wasn't a man who raised his voice in front of cameras, but he was raised in a world where words were currency, and tonight he'd spent everyone with purpose. Outside, a few reporters were already gathered at the curb. One tried to ask him a question, but he kept walking to his car. "Mr. Donald, do you have any comments on Crockett's remarks?" He didn't break pace, but once inside, he sat for a long, motor turned off, simply stillness. His phone buzzed twice, but he missed calling his wife. "Talia." He phoned her back. "Hey," she responded soon away. "You okay?" Her voice was pleasant, yet it also conveyed something more. "She has plainly watched the footage, so I'm all okay." He remarked that as you exhaled, you saw it. "Of course. They're playing it on every channel right now. It's already on the top page of the Times." There was a lengthy pause, and Byron leaned his head on the driving wheel. "I didn't want to pull you into this," he remarked gently. "I've been in this since the first time you walked into Congress." She said, "And I'm proud of what you said. You didn't let them bait you, so you stood up." He smiled slightly. "I simply didn't expect her to go there like that. She doesn't know us." Talia said, "People who don't know our story will always try to write it for us." That line hit him harder than anything in the studio. Across town, in a hotel bar near the Capitol, 3 other congressmen watched the replay on mute. One of them, a moderate Democrat from Ohio, nodded slowly, sipping his drink. "Damn," he said, "that was personal." His colleague leaned in, thinking it'll backfire on her. "I don't know what the first one said, but you don't talk about a man's family like that on LI." Arlene did not respond straight away. Then she continued, "Because sometimes people confuse pain with permission. Just because you've gone through something doesn't mean you can say whatever you want." The kid considered this. "I believe he handled it well, as did I." Meanwhile, Byron was not finished by the next morning. He demanded a one-on-one interview with a local Tampa station, not a national or cable network. He did not call anyone by name. He did not gloat, "And I am not interested in bringing her down." He said, "But I do want people to think about what kind of politics we're building. We can argue about policy, we can fight on the floor, but when we start using someone's family as a weapon, we lose more than the argument, we lose decency." The clip aired at 6 p.m., no flashy headlines, just a quiet, grounded response, and that's what made it powerful. Even people who didn't vote like him started paying attention, not because they suddenly agreed, but because he reminded them of something they'd nearly forgotten, that sometimes real strength is refusing to throw the next punch, even when you're handed the perfect opportunity. But Jasmine Crockett wasn't staying quiet either, and what she said next only raised the stakes. Friday morning hit like thunder. Cable news led with the clip. Every show, every segment, the screen was split in two. Byron on one side, Jasmine on the other. Headlines ran like ticker tape. Racial comments sparks live TV clash. Donald's responds to Crockett's controversial statement. Family politics and the line that was crossed by mid-morning Jasmine Crockett was trending across every platform. Her team had already gone into defense mode. A pre-recorded video dropped on her social media just after 9 a.m. She sat in front of a Texas flag blazer on chin high. Her message was short but sharp. What I said wasn't an attack on his family. It was a criticism of perspective. If we can't acknowledge that personal relationships influence political views, then we're not having a real conversation. She never apologized. She never directly mentioned his wife again. But she made sure people knew she wasn't backing down. Backstage at a CNN studio in Sacramento, a political analyst watched the clip with headphones in, arms crossed. She's trying to reframe it. She's playing to her base. It's not about right or wrong. It's about who walks away loudest. However, volume isn't necessarily a strength. In Jacksonville, a radio station conducted a call-in show. When the DJ asked listeners if Jasmine Crockett crossed the line, a man named Everett phoned in first. Yes, she did. I'm a black man married to a Latina lady, and I'm tired of people behaving as if it makes me any less attached to my heritage. The next caller disagreed. She's not incorrect in expressing it. We need to speak about how people's decisions influence how they vote. Then a lady called Deirdre appeared. I see both sides, she said. But sometimes the truth isn't about whether you can say it, but whether you should. That remark remained with the presenter. He repeated it again before the program finished in a suburban area in Spokane, Washington. Byron Donald's oldest son, Kendall, was sitting in history class when a boy came over and whispered, "Hey, your dad is on TikTok." Kendall did not answer. He'd watched the footage during lunch. He took out his phone and watched it again. His father's expression was calm and steady. Then there was a rapid cut to Representative Crockett, the statement, and the reaction. He texted his father one word: respect. Byron texted back, "Keep your head up." Jasmine was scheduled to speak at a fundraiser that evening, and everyone wondered if she'd address the controversy again. One aide, a younger staffer who had supported her campaign since the beginning, sat in the corner scrolling Reddit. The comments weren't what she expected. She made it personal. That is hardly leadership. Donald stated what needed to be said in a courteous and authentic manner. Why isn't anybody discussing the topics they were meant to debate? She closed the app and gazed at the screen. Late afternoon, a clip from a behind-the-scenes moment was leaked by someone at the studio. At it, Byron and Jasmine passed each other in a corridor, and she remarked, I didn't mean it like that." Byron didn't stop walking. He responded without turning around, "Yeah, but you still said it." There was no malice, no venom, just the weight of disappointment hanging between them. The clip only added fuel to the fire as cable shows brought on relationship experts and cultural commentators to debate what interracial marriage means in the context of race and representation. The conversation had spiraled far beyond the original debate, and Byron maintained a low profile throughout. He gave no interviews, no response tweets, no showy pressers. He just kept showing up committees, votes, meetings like the whole thing didn't explode across every screen in America. But sometimes silence is louder than words, and that silence was about to be broken by voices no one expected. By Saturday morning, the headlines had grown tired, but the people hadn't. The story had outgrown the news cycle and landed in kitchen conversations, barbershop debates, group texts, and church parking lots. Not because it was scandalous, but because you marry someone you love. It does not make you blind, but it does affect what you observe, responded the woman across from him. That's what she intended. That's what Jasmine was trying to imply. Norman didn't butt in, but he wanted to. Instead, he looked at the photo of his wife Allison White tucked in his wallet. They'd been married for over 40 years. He remembered when he brought her home to meet his mother, the tension, the stares, the conversations that came after, and the ones that never did. He'd lived at every sideways comment, every awkward pause when people tried to figure him out, so when he saw that clip Thursday night, it felt less like politics and more like someone poking at a wound that had never fully closed. Elsewhere in Des Moines, Iowa, Chane Butler, a public school teacher and mother of 3, sat in her car. "We should be growing it, not police it." Chenet halted the program and glanced out the window. Her youngest daughter had questioned her mom only last week. "Why do people say we don't look like a family?" Her husband was white, and their children were in between. And now this entire thing felt personal. On the flip side, in parts of Oakland and Minneapolis, support for Jasmine's statement was fierce. Hashtags defending her viewpoint spread fast. Often tied to deeper frustrations about political representation, people pointed out that lived experience matters in shaping how policies are made, and many didn't like the idea of being told to tone down their critiques when systems continued to fail them. She didn't say he wasn't black, said on it wasn't totally political, however. It was personal, deep, and difficult. On Sunday night, an unexpected voice stepped up in the form of a video posted online. It was not showy. There was no music, just a woman in her early 40s sitting on a porch in Tallahassee. Her name was Kira Donnelly. She was not renowned or verified, but her post received over 3 million views in only 24 hours. She glanced directly into her phone and stated, "My husband is black. I am white. We have 2 children, and when I heard what was said to Brandon Donalds, it hit me hard, not just because I thought it was unfair, but because it reminded me of all the times people have looked at my family and seen something political rather than something human." She paused, then added, "I understand that representation is important. I understand that history is complex, but is punishing individuals for who they love really making things better?" Her comments section received thousands of responses from couples throughout the country. Some shared their tales, while others just said thank you by Monday. It was evident that this was no longer just about Byron and Jasmine. It had become a conversation about who gets to define identity, about how politics sometimes strips people down to symbols, and about the quiet battles fought inside families where culture, love, and loyalty frequently collide. But just when things started to settle, Byron Donalds made one final move that brought everything full circle.